We can now put the gun back together. We will start with the side seals. Again, making sure you put the right side with the right check valve. This one being the resin side. A side for the A side. And only put them in 1 or 2 turns. You can put in your check valves as well. Again, making sure the A side goes on the A side. And always good practice to put some grease on the face of the check valve and O-ring and on the resin side, primarily to prevent the isocyanate from crystallizing on you. We can now put the mix chamber back into the gun, and you will always want to make sure that the stamped letter faces upwards. Put that in the slot, and you want to carefully slide the gun front assembly back onto the gun. We can now tighten the bolt back onto the gun. And we can now proceed with tightening the side seals back onto the front of the gun. We can also now put the gun manifold back onto the gun. Also making sure that you apply some grease on both the A and the B ports. We can now also put our mix tip back on the front of the gun. We can now check the check valve on the gun. This check valve is to prevent the feed air from only going in one direction and not backwards. This can be simply done with a flathead screwdriver. And inside this you will find the check valve. So we will screw that back in place. On the bottom of the gun you are going to see the muffler itself. This should always be cleaned. If it's not clean, it will actually give you problems in the gun itself. This can be removed and checked with a flathead screwdriver. Replace if required, and be careful not to over tighten it. Now we're ready to test to make sure the mix tip will be activated once we release the trigger lock. To release the trigger lock, you push in and to the left. That will release the safety trigger lock. To lock it, simply push in and turn to the right. Now we can proceed with hooking up our air to the back of the gun. We can now turn our air on and release the safety trigger lock. And you want to look at the front when you pull the trigger. will notice that the mix tip is now flush with the gun. That's normal operation. If it does not, then you may have the trigger safety lock still partially on, or you may not have enough air. So we have good function of the mix tip. We can now shut the safety trigger lock. We can shut our air off. Now you are ready to do a test spray with your material by opening up your A and B valves. And now you are ready to spray. If you choose to flush your gun head, you can do so by installing the flush block, and that is simply done by removing the gun manifold and installing a supply flush pump by means of putting a fitting on the ends. Hope you enjoy your new ST1 gun.